Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are the Harvard Federal Credit Union, and this is Adulting 101, the first of our presentations during our winter session series of presentations. Please join us tomorrow for more financial programming. As we begin today, with today's webinar, no worries, no concerns. We have reduced all background noise. So no matter what you're doing in the background, having lunch, maybe petting your dog, playing with the kids, no issues at all. Please feel free to be as you are and come as you are. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them using the Q&A feature. The chat has been disabled. Please test it out. Let us know where you're joining us from, whether it is your couch or sunny Los Angeles, or maybe even somewhere in Utah. We would love to know where our membership has extended to. Also, this presentation will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel to rewatch. Jen, if you could please put that link in the chat. I believe it is youtube.com/HarvardFCU. And also, please take our survey. We love all feedback. Let us know how we did and how we could continue to add value to our membership and what we do to you and help you out. As we begin, let's take a look at our host. I am Terrence Brazil, the Community Engagement Specialist, and I am joined with my team on the background, Jen Fries, the Community Engagement Manager, and Ty Robinson, who is also a Community Engagement Specialist. Thank you both for being here. And if you have any questions at all, they'll be the ones to help me out and help things be running smoothly. Next up, our presenters. We have Carly Bolton and Jawahir Mohammed. Both of them are our current SAC students. If you are interested in becoming an SAC student, you can visit our website to learn more. Carly is a junior at Harvard College, majoring in economics and computer science. She has been with the credit union for over 2 years and enjoys writing blogs to help bridge financial knowledge gaps. In her free time, she loves spending time with friends, playing soccer, and traveling to explore new cultures. Jawahir is a senior at Harvard College studying psychology and economics. Is deeply passionate about behavioral economics and the intricacies of human decision making. Since her sophomore year, she has been actively involved with the Harvard Federal Credit Union, contributing to blog posts, media, and organizational initiatives. She's also the co-founder and co-president of the Harvard Undergraduate Black Muslim Collective, fostering community and representation on campus. We are both very lucky and very happy to have you both here. Thank you for being here, Carly and Jawahir. Now, a little bit of background information if you have not heard about us, you don't know about us, or maybe you're new to the credit union game as a whole. So let's do some housekeeping a little bit. So credit unions are not for-profit banking. What does that mean? That means we are community focused. We are dedicated to empowering community at Harvard and beyond. And once a member, always a member. Even if you leave your job, your membership extends to your entire family. Also, our products and services. We do offer all the same traditional bells and whistles that a traditional bank would offer: credit cards, debit cards, checking accounts, savings accounts. Some of our savings accounts are a bit more high yield. And also, we are accessible anywhere. We have convenient locations and online banking, and we do offer ATM refunds if you qualify for the program. Without any other further ado, let's jump right into today's agenda: building credit history, and full-time jobs, living on your own, and tips for financial success. The flow of today's presentation will be me kind of taking the lead on most things, and we will be queuing up our SAC students to also give in their own personal feedback and experiences as to how things have gone for them, to offer more insight into the process. And if you are soon to be adulting on your own, I think a lot of the tips that we'll cover today will help you set yourself up and put yourself on the right foot so that way you can make the most impactful decisions moving forward. So to begin, let's talk about building credit history. Now, this is something that'll be important to understand and to do something rather than later. So let's talk about this now and see what it means and what it actually is. What is credit history? So at its core, credit is an agreement between an individual and a creditor in which the individual receives something now with the understanding that will pay the creditor back later. This can come in a variety of forms, such as a loan, a credit card, or a line of credit. Your credit history is a record of how you've managed various forms of credit that have been extended to you. So those credit cards, loans, and lines of credit that we mentioned earlier. Credit report shows your credit history and the activity on all open credit accounts in addition to details about any closed accounts within a certain time period. This shows how you've handled credit accounts in the past, as well as how you are currently handling credit. Closed accounts can typically stay on your credit report for between 2 and 10 years, and open and active accounts can remain on your report indefinitely as long as they remain in good standing. Your credit score, which is going to be a little bit more representative of just like a quick snapshot of what you have, is a 3-digit number that uses information from your credit report to help creditors predict how likely you are to pay them back as agreed if they choose to extend the credit you are requesting. Basically, creditors use your credit score to measure how risky it is for them to offer you a loan or give you a credit card within a certain available limit. Usually, if you're just adulting, that limit's going to be something manageable. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but maybe between like 500 to 1,000, maybe even up to like 2,500, just to start out. And finally, your credit history. So both your credit report and credit score can be a determining factor in a variety of things, like whether or not new credit will be extended to you and what terms are, if so. An example of this is if you have a higher credit score where things are A tier, where I'm usually around 700 and above, you are more credit worthy for more favorable loan options. And we do have a whole presentation on credit where you go much more in depth about how it is, what credit is, how it impacts you, and what you can do to transition your score from what it is now to where you would like it to be in the future. Also, let's see, your credit score can also impact whether or not you are offered or able to keep some jobs. Your credit history can also be a determining factor in being able to rent or buy a home, as well as a variety of other situations. Your credit history impacts way more than just your ability to get a loan, which is why it's important to be aware of and focus on building a strong history sooner rather than later. And I do see some questions coming in. Please keep them coming. Submit them in the Q&A, and we're more than happy to answer them at the end. Now, we've talked a lot about what credit is and credit history. How do you actually start building credit history in a way that helps you? One way to build credit is a secured credit card, which requires a cash security deposit to open the account. This is money that comes from you that you give to your lender that says, okay, I would like my credit limit to be, let's say, $500, and you give them $500 and you secure it. This security deposit reduces the risk to the lender because if you don't pay your card, they have the money from your deposit to pay. People with no credit history or lower credit scores often must start with a secured credit card to establish or rebuild their credit history. Deposits are generally low, on average, anywhere from $200 to $500, but they can still be higher. With a secured card, you are still required to make a monthly payment on time or risk it reporting late to the bureaus. We will touch on the 3 credit bureaus a little bit later. Your deposit is not used to pay for purchases, and you are charged interest on the balance you carry over to the next month. Go. One other option is, no, I went too fast, is using a credit building loan. And we could also become an authorized user with caution. I have a personal story about this. I do have my little brothers and my nieces as an authorized user on my credit card. I didn't give them access to my credit card because truthfully, I don't want that kind of risk. But it is a way for them to begin to establish some credit through me, where I typically pay off my bill every month, and I've had a long positive impacting credit history. And when they sign up, they also get that credit history that I've earned as well. But it does become clear to the lender that the credit history is not their own. It is my credit history, but it does give them kind of like a boost and a leg up when it comes to having nothing. If someone you trust has a credit card in their name, they can add you as an authorized user to typically start building some credit. Typically, accounts where you are an owner have more impact on your credit, but being added as an authorized user can be a good way to establish some history, especially if you're not quite 18 yet. The account owner will want to confirm with the creditor that will be reported to your credit as well as the time which they add you. There's some inherent risk to this, I will be honest, because if the individual maxes out the card or misses a payment, this can negatively impact your credit as well. If you trust the person, this can be a good option to start to establish some credit history until you're able to get an account in your account in their own name. So you can do what I do. I got them the card and I just keep it so that way they don't even know they have it and credit is being built automatically. Let's look at some credit score factors. We talked about it earlier, and there are two main things that take up about 65% of the impact that you have over your credit score. 35% is payment history, and this is what it is. You're making your payments on time and in full month after month. 30% is amounts owed slash credit utilization. When you get a credit card or line of credit, it comes with a maximum limit, which is the maximum amount of credit you have access to use on that account. Credit utilization looks at how much of that available credit you are using, and the more of it that you are using, the more risky it appears to the creditor to extend you more credit. A good rule of thumb is to not go over 30% of the max amount of credit you have available to you. So for simple numbers, simple math, let's say you have a credit limit of 1,000, you would not want to have any more than $300 used or tied up in a purchase at any one time, because then you are going over that 30% limit or good using ratio. And once you get over that, it could start to negatively impact your credit score in terms of like how the creditor looks at you. There's also 20%, 10% is credit mix, 20% is new credit. These are very minor in terms of how they impact you. And 15% is length of credit history. Length of credit history is creditors want to see a history of maintaining credit over time so that they can more confidently assess the risk level by offering you additional credit. The longer your accounts have been open and active, the better. To go back to your credit, you may have heard that new credit inquiries impact your score, and this is where that comes into play. Anytime you apply for a credit card, a loan, or any type of line of extension, the creditor typically pulls your credit report to review your history to make their decision. This is known as a hard inquiry, which remains on your credit report and impacts your credit score for up to 2 years. While of course, this is all we need to apply for credit from time to time, the goal is to be strategic and only apply for new credit when you really need it. Having too many inquiries in a short time can start to be a red flag to creditors who wonder what might be going on. I have a tip for this as well, where if you are shopping around because you're going to make a big purchase in the future, maybe you're getting a new car loan, maybe you're getting a mortgage, or maybe even you're looking to get a new piece of furniture, right? My recommendation is to have an idea of all the lenders and people who will be pulling your credit and have them pull it within a 2-week window. Within that 2-week window, it lets the bureaus know you are shopping around and your multiple credit inquiries become consolidated into one. So you have one impact, but as long as you're able to have all of them do it within that 2-week window, you will be good. I'm not saying it's not going to impact you, but it'll be minimized and you'll mitigate the risk of having multiple credit inquiries over the next 2 months or 3 months as you're looking for credit. Credit mix and is diversifying the types of credit you will have open and active can help your credit score. Instead of having 2 or 3 credit cards, consider opening a credit card in a loan, Perhaps you might even have a student loan or maybe an auto loan. And I'm not going out here to say, please start opening different types of loans because you want to impact and like positively impact your credit score. That's not the case here. As you can see with the chart, 35% is payment history and 30% is amount owed. That is 65% of just paying your bills on time and being able to be strategic about what you currently have out right now. That will be more than enough to make a positive impact. Pay your bills on time and keep your balances low. If you have any questions about this at all, please put them in the Q&A feature. It's going to be great at the end when we have a good mix of questions that we can answer. Next up, we're going to look at building positive credit history. Let's look at a time here. Okay, and I'm going to kick it over to my lovely partner, Joe right here, and I will talk a little bit, and then Joe here, you want to tell us a little bit more about your situation and like what your personal story is?
Yes, thank you so much, Terrence. So I am joining from abroad, so my camera will be off, unfortunately, and the Wi-Fi is a bit wonky, so I do apologize for that. But on the topic of credit, I would say I have an interesting relationship with it just because I'm Muslim, and so my faith influences my financial decisions. We're taught to stay away from anything involving interest, including credit cards. But there is some debate among scholars. Some say it's okay to use a credit card as long as you pay off the balance in full on time every month and avoid any interest. Personally, in my family, I see both sides. So some of my relatives have credit cards and others completely avoid them. I'm personally still trying to figure out what works best for me. But I picked up a few tips from my family and like this personal finance course that I took last semester that I think will help me handle credit responsibly. And so there are basically three main tips. The first one, I will try not to make any purchases on a credit card unless I already have at least 80% of the amount in cash or in my debit account. This is a tip that I took from my mother, and she says that in this way, like I can avoid overspending and carrying a balance that will lead me to paying a high amount of interest, which usually snowballs and piles up really quickly. I've seen this happen firsthand to like one of my family members who ended up with a very big balance that they're still struggling to pay off, and they weren't even aware that it was piling up so quickly. And so I feel like having that rule, making sure I have at least some of the money in cash will help me like make sure I'm not spending anything that I can't really afford. Second, if I ever get a new credit card, I would think about transferring a balance only if it actually makes sense for me. And if I did transfer the balance, I move it to the card with the lowest interest rate, but I would avoid spending on the new credit card because, like I said, like it's very easy to fall into debt if you're not careful. And so, not spending on the second credit card would basically ensure that I'm not piling up even more debt. And then lastly, if I ever ended up with multiple credit cards and multiple balances to pay off, my first step would be to focus on the one with the highest interest rate. This would save me the most money in the long run because like it has the possibility and the chance of like accruing the most interest the quickest. So I would have to owe money in the long run. So by putting my focus on that, I'd be able to hopefully minimize the debt that I'd have to pay off. But honestly, like the ultimate goal is to avoid carrying any balance at all. That's like the number one thing that I'm told. And so the best habit, like Terrence mentioned, is to pay off everything in full each month so you're not paying any interest at all. And so these are a few things I have learned and will definitely keep in mind when handling credit. I'm still learning, but I feel like these three strategies give me a good foundation to start off with.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe here. Appreciate your input, and everything you said was absolutely correct, especially the paying off your balance in full as often as you can. That's amazing. One other thing I do want to mention is not to ignore bills, even if it's incorrect or you don't think you owe it. I definitely am, I think, a victim of this early on where I thought, oh, this isn't me, or I got a think I got a bill in the mail, or it was a medical bill. I thought, haven't seen a doctor in months. This is not my business. And I ignored it and thought, whatever, they'll fix it on their own. And before I knew it, fees kind of kept adding up. And what was once $25 quickly became $100. And I had to pay the bill. So, rule of thumb, when you're paying and how to build good positive credit history is to always pay your bills on time and don't ignore the bills, even if you think it's incorrect. Collections can stay on your credit report for up to 7 years and can have a quick negative impact on your credit score. Collections accounts can include everything from car insurance that wasn't paid, cell phones, cable equipment that wasn't returned, medical bills that were not paid, rental leases that were broken early, and more sent to collections and weigh heavily on someone's credit. Some people ignore collection accounts because they think it should not be on there because the bill was paid or it was an error. Taking care of this as soon as you get a past due bill or a notice is so important. Ignoring it because you don't think it's legitimate typically won't make it magically go away, but can make it much harder to take care of later. One last tip, or a few more, the next step actually, is to review your credit reports from annualcreditreport.com. It says annually, but I would recommend you would do it once a quarter, every 3 months, just to keep yourself abreast of what is going on and to not let anything like, surprise you. And you will have the experience to be able to check Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. I would pull each one at a different time just because one credit line might only report to TransUnion, but it may not report to Experian or Equifax. Checking your own credit report and score does not impact your credit score. One more time, checking your own credit report and score does not impact your credit score. Reviewing it for educational and monitoring purposes is different from a hard inquiry, which does impact your score. It is important to know that your credit score is not on your free credit report. You may be familiar with some of the online tools like Credit Karma that offers free credit scores. While these can give you a rough idea of where your score may be, it is important to take the score provided with a grain of salt, as it is typically not the most accurate or up-to-date information. If you were going to go to a credit union or a bank and apply for credit, there's a good chance the score they pull will be different than what you see on Credit Karma. Your financial institution or creditor may have a free credit score monitoring tool available within your account. So we do offer that. We do offer our credit monitoring tool. I think it's on our online banking app. Just have to join the credit union to find out and learn more. And one more time, I'm going to say it again, just because it's worth repeating. Make your payment every month on time. It makes a huge difference when it comes to maintaining and building positive credit history. Next, we're going to kick it over to full-time jobs, and we're going to come right back and bring in Jawa here.
Okay, guys, so now switching gears to full-time jobs. I'm currently a senior, like Terrence mentioned before, so I'm right in the middle of figuring out my next steps, and there's a lot to consider when it comes to choosing the right job. One of the biggest factors I've been thinking about is location. I learned that location doesn't just determine where you live, but it also has a huge impact on your salary as well as the cost of living. For example, a high salary in like a city like New York or San Francisco might sound great at first, but when you take into account things like rent, transportation, and like just the overall living expenses, the money that you're being offered might not stretch as far as you think. On the other hand, a slightly lower salary in a more affordable place like Ohio or Texas could end up giving you more financial freedom because the cost of living in those states is significantly lower. So it's not just about like the money on your paycheck, it's about how much value you're actually getting from it. Can you save money? Can you afford a comfortable lifestyle? Maybe even pay off debt? These are some of the questions that I've been asking myself as I evaluate like different opportunities and different offers. I'm also paying close attention to pre and post tax earnings. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of a big job offer, like especially when you see those numbers on paper. But what really matters is like how much I'll actually take home after taxes and deductions. For example, things like federal and state taxes, social security, and contributions to saving accounts, all those can like significantly reduce your paychecks. So understanding what my real usable income would look like is a key part of evaluating like any of the offers that I receive. And then on the note of deductions, one thing like prioritizing is building an emergency fund. So in my personal finance class, we talked about the importance of having at least like 3 to 4 months worth of living expenses saved up as a safety net. And this advice has really stuck with me because having that cushion can provide financial security as well as like a peace of mind, especially when unexpected situations rise up, like I don't know, your car breaks down or like some medical expense. And so for me, setting aside this money will be like one of my first financial goals when I start working my full-time job. And then there are the benefits that come with the job that I've been considering, which can sometimes be like just as valuable as the salary itself, or even more so like in the long run. And so I'm looking closely at things like retirement account options, especially if the company offers matching contributions, which is like essentially free money for your future in a sense, and it's like a very good deal. Health insurance is another big thing that I'm considering. So good coverage obviously like will save you a lot of money, maybe even thousands in medical costs. And you never really know when like anything can go wrong. So it's also really good to have. Also things like parental leave, paid time off, professional development stipends, all those can really add to your like your overall compensation as well as quality of life. And so it's a lot to think about. It is overwhelming, but I feel like taking all these factors into account when I'm searching for the right job um, will help me ensure that I not only find the right fit, but I'm set up financially, like my first few years of like having a career. So I'm pretty excited to start this new chapter and see where it takes me.
So thank you, Jawahir. You sound very ready, you sound prepared, and I think that's no small part to the credit union, the job that you've had here. So I'm very happy to hear that you'll be prepared for the future. Fingers crossed. Some other things that I wanted to touch on that you didn't go into detail about is hold off on making big financial commitments until you exactly know what your net pay is. It can be really exciting to get your first job offer. You get that letter and you're like, cool. And automatically you're like, all right, what am I spending my money on? What am I buying? What am I getting? What's the furniture? I'm getting a dog, I'm getting a cat, whatever it is. And it could honestly set you up for having some struggle in the future. Renting a new place, taking out a loan to purchase a new car, or anything like this, wait until you get your first paycheck to find out how much money you actually will be getting in your paychecks. It's also important to know when the benefits that you mentioned earlier, Joe, here, when they'll start. Sometimes there's a waiting period when you start a new job. If this is the case, you need to calculate how much you'll be paying towards the benefits when they kick in and subtract that amount from your initial net pay to estimate your take home pay long term. This will be the number you want to use considering affordability and taking on new financial obligations. Also, with this number, this is probably the number that you should begin using your budgeting you're separate your budgeting out. We do have some other presentations on our YouTube page that talks about budgeting more in depth, whether it's the 50-30-20 budget rule or looking at your statements as well. But this is the number that you should start building your budget with. And also, if you are offered an hourly position, and those hours might fluctuate based on your financial decisions, the amount of take home pay you know you're going to be guaranteed to earn. For example, if you're offered a job with 35 to 45 hours per week, use the take home pay for that 35 hours. When you work more than that, great. That's extra money to put towards financial goals and savings. You can confidently know, however, that your needs will be met even when you work towards the lower end of the hour range when you base your budget on it. The same thing goes for overtime. Even if you are told you can expect to be eligible for regular overtime, consider this extra money to put towards financial goals and base your actual budget on your guaranteed income. Overtime income, sometimes when it even comes to qualifying for loans, may not even be considered because lenders see that as not guaranteed income. Now, let's shift a little bit into living on your own, and I will kick it over to Carly.
Hi everyone, my name is Carly. I'm a junior at Harvard. I study economics and computer science. I currently actually just moved into my own apartment, so I'm happy to share a bit about the experience.
Carly?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you hear my introduction part?
Oh, yeah. Something on timeline.
Yes, we could hear your intro, Carly.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So I guess, we're gonna talk a bit about moving out and living on your own here, whether you plan to truly live on your own or even have, a roommate. But we're just gonna talk about a few steps to take in advance to set yourself up. So one of the things you want to do is determine a realistic timeline. So when you're ready to start thinking about moving out, if you don't have any money saved up and you need to work on your credit, it's important to know, there's a minimum of at least 6 months before you realistically are able to think about moving out on your own. And if you're in a situation where you really need to move out sooner for some reason or another, try to investigate what community resources may be available to help you expedite that process. In general, start thinking, steps to prepare to move out at least, let's say, 3 months in advance, if not longer. And I actually used to be a realtor, and I cannot stress enough that the more time you allocate to planning, the better off you will be. I also suggest, some strategies such as keeping a spreadsheet of everything to centralize the entire process. There's a lot of moving parts to it, so if you're able to keep everything in one place, that helps to minimize any confusions. Create a general timeline so you can kind of gauge if you're running on track or not. And try to track everything with notes. Once you see, let's say, 3+ properties, they all kind of blend in together. So having these notes laid out will help you separate each property you end up touring, and lets you make a good decision at the end of the day when you're, I guess, placing on your final decision in which property to pursue. Speaking of credit, it's very important to know, where you stand before starting to apply for places, as your credit score is typically a determining factor in whether your rental application will be approved or not. Definitely review your credit report from the 3 credit bureaus, as Terrence had mentioned, which can be done for free at annualcreditreport.com. Make sure that everything is accurate and you're aware what's on your credit report. If something is inaccurate, you want to file a dispute with the credit bureaus as soon as possible to work on getting that resolved. And if you have any outstanding old bills in collection, let's say leases, utilities, come up with a plan to really get those paid and resolved. Landlords, they don't want to see any outstanding balances that you owe to a previous landlord, and same thing with utilities. So it really takes time to build credit or to get inaccuracies resolved. So the sooner you can start working on this in preparation to move out, the better. And as my time as a realtor, I've spoken a lot with many landlords, and they rely pretty heavily on the credit score as a gauge on the likelihood of you paying rent on time. So it's a very important factor that you should definitely put in priority. And if you don't have any credit history at all, now is the time to start building. Again, talk with your financial institution about secured credit cards and credit building loans. These are tools that allow you to start building that credit without needing any existing credit history to get approved. If you're moving out on your own for the very first time, you may need to purchase quite a few items. I have, quite a couple of stories about that I'll share later on. So definitely make a list of everything you will need to be able to live on your own. Let's say bedding, curtains, rugs, kitchen utensils, appliances, dishes, trash cans, furniture, electronics, and anything else that you may need. Consider what items you must have before your first night in a place on your own, and what items that you'd like to have eventually, but could wait. And if you have room to store items before moving, start looking for deals and sales on the items that you'll end up needing. And then also a tip is to look at thrift stores. There's also a Facebook Marketplace, and other resources like eBay, where you can buy pretty good quality used things. So that way you can save money and make your dollar stretch a bit further. So secondhand options are definitely a great choice. And if you don't have space to start buying items at the moment, maybe slowly, ahead of time, prioritize saving money to then buy those items later on once you do get your keys. And I definitely recommend, I cannot stress this enough, buy the essentials first, and then any additional wants purchase after you move in. The space feels a lot different once you start to put your items in. So definitely a good tip, especially if you're looking to save money. And this way you can avoid buying things that you don't necessarily need / may not fit in your apartment or house.
Also, to add a little bit of tip of my own to that, Carly, is let your friends and family know that you're moving. When I first moved into my apartment, a lot of my furniture I was gifted secondhand from people who were upgrading, people who were moving out of their house. A lot of my stuff came for free, and that's how I furnished. I got two hutches, I got a big couch, I got a whole kitchen and dining set, and a nice butcher block table as well. So do not discount shopping with your family and shopping at their house for their stuff, because I'm sure we all have some extra things they want to get rid of, and it's cost savings in the end. But yeah, good job, Carly. Keep going.
That is very true. I did end up going to my family and grabbing a bin, and I basically tossed whatever I needed and called it a day. And it saved me, I'd say, at least a couple $100 on some of the supplies that we weren't necessarily using. So a good way to find resources that you may need. All right. It's also, I would say, super important to do some research on the rental prices and landlords in your area. So that's how much can you expect to spend on rent in the neighborhood that you'd like to move in? What landlords, housing complexes, and property managers have good reputations in that area? And perhaps even more importantly, which might you want to avoid? What is the average rental lease length in that area? And can you commit to staying in one place for, at least that long? And there are often steep penalties and fees for breaking a lease early. So you definitely want to do your research and really understand this before signing an agreement. Sometimes if you do break your lease early, you can go into legal action, which is many headaches as well as high fees that are associated with it. So make sure you understand the market and the lease that you are signing.
One more personal story with this. In my situation, I considered breaking the lease early because I re-signed my old place for 2 years, and this was before I officially got the job where I'm at now, and it became a bit of a hassle for the long commute. And when I went back and reviewed my lease, it was 300% to break my lease, which, when all was said and done, came out to be about 10 grand. And I that was very much a factor in me staying where I was. So be mindful before you go ahead and start breaking out those leases, because it does cost you.
So once you've done that research that we had talked about, determine how much you can comfortably afford to pay in rent with your other expenses. It's recommended to keep your rent payment below 30% of your monthly gross income, but it's important to know, what really works for you based on your other expenses and goals. Not everyone has the same plan, so make sure you tailor it and customize it to your certain situation. And then start putting the amount of money you expect to be a future rent payment into savings every month. Not only does this allow you to start getting used to not having those funds to spend on other things to make sure you can truly afford that payment, but it also helps you build a saving cushion before moving out. Not to mention, you can also earn interest to save, which is a bonus. And speaking of moving out, typically this requires a variety of upfront costs. You'll typically have to put down a security deposit that's often equivalent to 1 month's rent plus your first month's rent. And in some cases, you may be required to put down your last month's rent too. This could mean you may be expected to pay at least 3 months worth of rent at once to be able to move in. So start saving aggressively to ensure you have the money you need to secure a place. In addition, moving expenses and purchasing the items you'll need for your new place, just like we talked about, definitely adds up. And this really depends on what state you're in, but for Massachusetts, it's also very common that you'll have to pay the broker's fee, which is equivalent to the first month's rent. So in some cases, a landlord may pay for it, but it's very uncommon to come across unless you're a mass rent negotiation, which I applaud if you're able to do so.
Mhm. It's difficult out here.
It truly is. Life does happen many times. These things are out of your control. So having a place of your own is a big responsibility. And it's really important to have a plan to keep a roof over your head, even if something does change in your financial situation unexpectedly. If something changes with your income or you suddenly have large unexpected expenses to cover, remember to treat your rent as your top priority and important financial priority. So it should really take precedent over other things, because the last thing you want is not having a place to live. And if you can't make your payment on time or you can't make your full payment, definitely communicate with your landlord as soon as possible. They may have other options available to you, and they're definitely gonna work with you to try and figure out the best solution to this problem. And the sooner you can start the conversation, the better. If at all possible, do not wait until after your rent is already past due. You will get an eviction letter, and that process can begin as soon as 1 month past due in some places. So being proactive is really key here. And there's no way you'll be able to make rent payments. Definitely reach out to your landlord. And if you ever do want to rent another property in the future, keep in mind that landlords do talk to each other. So you always want to keep a good relationship with them. In addition, you should also keep your own personal record of all your payments. Sometimes the landlord can make a mistake, and it's easy to pull up the receipts if you keep a running record. And this will avoid, some headaches and prevent the snowball effect from happening if a mistake does occur. If you have savings, this would be a prime time to dig into it. Consider what other items of value you have that could potentially be sold to create cash flow to put towards your rent as well. You can pick up extra hours at work or earn some extra money through a side hustle. Get creative here. Try to think of ways to bring in cash and put towards your rent. In some situations, there may be community resources available that potentially have financial assistance available to help with rent. Contact your local 211 hotline to inquire about rental assistance in your community if you exhausted all other options here.
Hey,
And
nice job. Oh, go ahead, Kylie. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say, you should always talk with people who have these skills in these institutions. They definitely know some of the ins and outs, and they have a lot of great insider information that can help you prepare and set you up for success when you do go on to rent a property. So you may be a little shy, but I definitely encourage you to go speak to people who do have experience and know it, like the back of the hand, and they can certainly help you out on your given circumstance.
Nice. So great job. Let's shift gears a little bit into some tips for financial success. You got some tips, Carly, that you'd like to share with us?
So I would say, being young, you have this advantage of time. So for myself, I try to set money aside in a Roth IRA. The only catch here is you do need to be employed, but no worries, if you're not employed, there are other investing options you can do. But a Roth will help you, save for retirement and let your money experience that $10 a day. It's better than nothing. So I definitely encourage you to go and explore all these different options out there. But the Roth is definitely one of my favorites because you don't have to pay, I believe it's capital gains tax. So anything that grows, you don't have to pay the tax on that, which is super helpful, especially, let's look 40 years down the line when most of my money will be acquired through capital gains.
Nice. So one other tip, and including that Roth IRA tip, is to create a budget and use it. And definitely include savings as a line item in your budget as well. So we've alluded through it throughout the top all of our time so far. But one of the biggest tips that we've mentioned over and over and over again, create a budget. Quite simply, your budget is your way to know how much money you have coming in and what you need and what you want it to go towards. Your budget is your plan to reach your own financial goals. As you start to adult and take on more financial responsibilities, your budget will be most likely to change. The sooner you start getting in the habit of using a budget, the easier it will be to continue using it as your financial situation changes. It should be a living, breathing document. What you create as your budget right now when you're adulting, that will not be the budget that you have when you get your next apartment or your home or you get your next job. As things shift, it really should 100% shift with you. And I'm not saying you should check it every single day, but you want to be aware of where things are going and where you're trending. So that way, if you start to see that your money is flowing in a direction that you don't really want it to, you have the chance to say, I'm going to shift. Things start to go too far and you find yourself in a situation that is difficult to get out of. Also, the sooner you start getting in the habit of budgeting, the easier it is to create a good habit. Um, when it comes to creating a budget, list all your income, the amount of money you know you have coming in to work with, then list all your expenses, your bills, groceries, gas, entertainment, everything you spend money on. Don't forget to build savings into your budget as well, as Carly mentioned, and list your expenses in order of priority. Then split them up based on what you have coming out on each month. Then keep track of your spending to ensure that you're staying within your budget. Consider downloading an app that you can sync with your accounts to track this for you automatically. If you need to adjust, be sure to move money from a lower priority expense budget category to make sure that all your highest priority, like rent, basic needs, and bills, are fully covered. As Carly mentioned again, treat your savings as a top financial priority. Get in the habit of paying for your future self by putting money into savings every time you get paid. I recommend setting this up as an automatic transfer so you don't have to go through and actually initiate the move yourself. Um, Because to be honest, there's a lot of things that we have to do and manage on a day-to-day basis, and it's a lot easier for you to set savings up so that way you don't have to think about it. You don't want it to be something that you forget to do because it's very easily to quickly set to the side and say, I'll save later, I'll save later. Pay yourself first. And think about the financial goals you'd like to save for, both short term and long term, as well as general savings for things like emergencies. Consider savings a priority expense when you're building a budget and adjust the amount you save as your income grows and your goals change. Digging a little bit deeper into this because it really does matter that much. Start thinking as long term as soon as possible. What do I mean by this? It's never too early to start saving for retirement. In fact, the numbers are staggering how much money you will have when you're ready to retire if you start putting money away and giving it more time to compound. While retirement may feel like it's literally forever away, 40 plus years, maybe even more than twice as long as you've been alive. Starting to save for retirement as soon as you start working full time is something you will absolutely not regret when the retirement does happen. When you start a full time job, it may be tempting to skip over starting to make contributions to your retirement plan. We encourage you to start saving for retirement as soon as you start working full time. Many employers offer to match what you save for retirement up to a certain amount. Joey here mentioned this, Carly mentioned this. Take advantage of that match because it pretty much is free money that your employer is contributing to you. Don't leave it on the table. Take advantage of it. This is part of the employer's benefits package, and I strongly encourage you take advantage of this. Know who to trust when it comes to learning about financial topics. We're in an age of social media. We're in an age of financial gurus that have podcasts, Everybody has a TikTok now, even though it went away, then it came back. Everyone is telling you about the next hot tip, whether it's Forex, investing, or what have you. Only truly take financial advice from people who've experienced long-term financial success. There are a lot of places to turn to. You can take education, your financial institution, your community bank at Harvard Federal Credit Union, and your fellow SAC students who do this day in and day out might be a good place to ask questions. And also, don't be afraid to ask questions about things that you may not know about. And my personal tip for this is ask the same question to multiple people because you'll get different answers based on the experience of that individual person. And it's not your job to go along with whoever gives you the answer that feels the best or sounds the most attainable, but get an answer that is in line with where you want to be in the future. And see where that person is and say, maybe I don't want to be like them in the future. That could also be a great determining factor to decide where you do or don't want to go. Generally, your financial institution is a trusted place to start when it comes to learning about finances, to find out what resources we have and what topics you can learn about. And we normally have a full suite of options to help you. And we do cater to different learning styles. One more thing, as I'm going to reach out, is talk about if you're ever struggling and you feel like you don't know what's going on, and learning how to adult is overwhelming. That's not a secret. It happens to all of us. Adulthood sometimes can be the hardest hood, truly. And a lot of things happen when things are out of control. And it's completely okay for things to suddenly feel like you don't know what you're doing or how to do this. You have a support system. And building a financial support system of trusted individuals will be the deciding factor in like how you manage those pop-up emergencies and flat tires that happen, because having a trusted person or a group of people that you can talk to really will allow you to get a good sense of what to expect out there and how to make the decision when an emergency happens. If you don't have a trusted group, I will provide one for you. It's GreenPath. GreenPath is free and confidential financial assessments. They offer credit reports reviews, student loan counseling, rent, mortgage, and home buyer counseling, and debt management plans. They are certified counselors that can conduct free, confidential financial assessments with you. This involves taking a look at your budget with you and collaborating to develop an action plan to help you work towards resolving your financial concerns and reaching your financial goals. GreenPath can also talk about other financial concerns such as credit, housing, and learning and whatnot. And if you are looking to contact GreenPath, the number's on the screen. The link will be in the chat pretty soon. And they also speak multiple languages. They have extended business hours, and truly, they are a great friend of the credit union. If you are calling for the first time, say Harvard FCU sent you, and services will be free. Not everything is free through GreenPath. There is a cost for their debt management plan. I will say that. But everything else, as far as calling, counseling, and saying like, hey, can I just talk to a person? That is free of charge. They do offer some more great things as well, such as Learning Lab Plus, which is a free online education by GreenPath that talks about a lot of the things that we talked about today and gives you bite-sized pieces of what you can learn, such as making the most of your money, a credit tool, paying down credit card debt, or even learning how to get into your first auto loan. Now, that will bring us to the end of our presentation. Any questions? But before you go, I do want to take a quick second, show our disclaimer that this presentation has been for educational purposes only. If you have any specific questions that we feel like may not be, that you want to have tailored to your direct situation, please contact GreenPath. But we are not tax or legal investment advice. This has only been for educational purposes only. But with that being said, questions? I'm going to take a look at the chat, the Q&A.
We did get a question for Jawa here. If she could mention what was the personal finance course that she took?
Oh, yeah. The course was called, it's Econ 70 and the title is Personal Finance. I can type it in the chat. I believe it's offered every fall semester, so they could try taking it this upcoming fall semester.
Okay, thank you, Jawa here. Any other questions? I don't see any others. If not, then honestly, thank you. Special thanks to Jen Fries, my boss, Ty Robinson for being in the background, Carly Bolton, and Jawahir Mohammed. You've all been lovely, very helpful, and thank you so much for being with us today, the audience. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your amazing questions. This has been Adulting 101, and I hope you all have a very wonderful afternoon and stay warm out there. It is cold where we are, it's below zero, and it's not fun. So, again, thank you. Be safe. Bye, everyone.